and going. Uh, Good afternoon, or actually good morning to you, Eddie in China. My name is actually Peggy Sue. Thank you, Buddy Holly. But I go by Susie Kramer. And as you said, I am the director of International Student Program at St. John the 23rd College Prep in Katy, Texas, right outside of Houston. My journey with working with international students started, now don't faint everybody, in 1964 when I attended university on a work study scholarship as an English major. My job was to tutor international students in English. You can't imagine what an eye-opener that was for this little Illinois farm girl. I guarantee you I learned as much from them as they learned from me. But it was the beginning of my adventure and my fascination with different cultures and different educational systems. Fast forward a few years, let's say about 34 actually. It was 1998 and I had just started as the admissions director at St. Pius X High School, a Catholic high school in Houston. To my surprise, there was one international student there, a boy from Vietnam, a young man whom I will never, ever forget. He was Catholic, and he did go with me to visit Catholic Vietnamese churches and CCE groups to discuss and to talk about what it was like to be an international student in an American Catholic high school. Within a few months, a Vietnamese immigration attorney contacted me and asked me if I would like to grow the program. Well, I jumped on board wholeheartedly with the overwhelming approval of my administration. With the rapid increase of the Vietnamese students, word spread. I was receiving emails, texts, in-person visits, especially from people from China, agents and individuals. I started working then with 2 individual agents from China, and the program grew and grew and grew. In 2016, I was approached by Ron Riesmeyer, the president of St. John the 23rd, where I now am, to create and implement an international program there, wearing one hat, director of that new program. At the same time, our representative from Homeland Security approached me and a colleague of mine, Chantal Duke, who's at the Village School now in Houston, to start a program providing networking opportunities among the 75 K through 12 schools in South Texas, to provide communication avenues with the governmental agencies. Apparently, it was first of its kind in the United States. We called it the Houston Roundtable for International Students. This group was very successful, and it kept everybody updated with SEVP changes, which is extremely important when you're in the international student business. In June of 2016, I had the incredible opportunity to travel to China with Chinese American agents, where we visited with many agencies who were recruiting students to come to America, to American schools. From that very exciting step in my journey and working with other recruiting agencies, which I did a lot of research on, we received many applicants from China. Our program at St. John grew from 3 international students that first year to 24 in 3 years, mostly from China. Unfortunately, for obvious reasons, such as COVID-19, travel restrictions, and closed embassies, there has been a downturn in the applicant pool. So you may ask, why do so many Chinese parents still trust and choose American Catholic high schools to educate their daughters and sons? Well, many Chinese parents tell me that they're in search of a high quality of education. Of course, that can be based on many different aspects. But even in China, education in Catholic schools is known to be excellent. Also, Catholic schools are known for their strict discipline, which appeals to the Chinese parents. Remember those nuns with the rulers? Oh no, never mind, we don't do that anymore. Some Chinese view the high school abroad as a desirable alternative to their schools at home, which focus largely on preparation for the test to enter the university. They see coming here as maybe getting a second chance because here you could take the SAT and the ACT more than once. And I think that one test in China can only be taken once for college. And then with the students, when I conduct my WeChat interviews, which I do with every student from China, to see what their English fluency is like, I ask one question every time, as I'm sure everybody does. Why do you want to study at a Catholic school in the United States? Almost always the answer is a variety of this. It's more open to student participation. In China, I'm not allowed to ask teacher questions. It's considered rude. I listen to the lecture and take the test. Chinese parents also see attendance at US Catholic high schools as a way for their students to become more competitive candidates for college admissions. Obviously, 4 years in an American high school speaking English is going to help them prepare better for college. And the more experience they have with American teaching style, even though they say they want that open teaching style of asking questions and everything, they're extremely shy at first. I fear that they are still afraid that it's going to be rude to ask questions of their teachers. It does take sometimes a few months or even a year to convince them that this is the way it should be. And as an aside, in Texas, if an international student attends at least 3 years in a Texas high school, they may qualify for in-state tuition at state schools. I have alumni at the University of Houston right now attending on in-state tuition. And let's face it, a diploma from a Catholic high school includes much more than just the academic part. Most of the schools require community service hours, and this adds a great dimension to the student's education and makes the college applicant more attractive. I also see a third way is that Chinese parents say they want their sons and daughters to have a true American experience. And I think that part of that, and a lot of them do also, is living with a homestay, an American homestay family. Therefore, we have to be extremely careful in terms of doing background checks and research for our homestay families. I recruit host parents from within our school community, from within our local parishes, through the church bulletins, and from a close circle of friends. I do strict background checks on all the adults in the home. I ask for a detailed profile from each of the family, talking about what they do on the weekends. Do they have family dinners? Do they attend church? And then I provide that to the student that I might be considering for that host family. And then I follow up. I try to pair up that international student with the appropriate family. But it doesn't stop there. I also have a monthly homestay report from each family and from each student. And I do occasional surprise in-home visits. Even though these students come from one of the largest atheist countries in the world, many of these Chinese parents would like their students exposed to the idea of Christianity, of Catholicism. In China schools, we know that state-mandated school curriculum emphasizes atheism and Marxism. So religion is something of a mystery to most Chinese students when they first arrive. As most Catholic schools do, St. John requires 4 years of theology for graduation and community service hours. At St. John's, we call it works of mercy. You require 100 hours before graduation. Because of these students' unfamiliarity with Catholicism, our school offers, I think, a very special program of a 2-year theology course geared just towards international students who have no framework and no background of Catholic religion. Our chaplain, Father Jonathan, teaches these classes starting at point 0, like a question is, Who is God? They certainly are not ready for the idea of the Trinity on day one, but we get to that. We obviously teach the Christian gospel as all Catholic schools do, but we do not evangelize to overtly convert these students. We try to teach not just by word, but by works and examples, just as Jesus did. I had a student a few years ago we were making a video of, and she was grasping something around her neck. And I said, stop the cameras. I said, Stephanie, that wasn't her name, but I said, Stephanie, what is that you have around your neck? And she said, oh, it's a cross. I said, but Stephanie, you told me you were an atheist. She says, well, I'm not a Catholic yet, but when I have this cross on, I have Jesus in my heart. I'm sorry, I almost cry at every time I tell that story. And then I had a young man a couple of years ago, very intelligent young man from China, come to me and say, Ms. Kramer, you know this God thing? You know this God thing you told me about when you WeChat interviewed with me? I wasn't sure about it, but now that I've had 2 years of theology, I think I'm interested in this God thing. Thank you, Ms. Kramer. That brought a huge smile to my face, let me tell you. Okay. At St. John the 23rd, we have Han Chinese, Uyghur Chinese, American students working together, playing together, studying together, becoming close friends. I had one Han Chinese girl come to me and say, Ms. Kramer, I had never talked to a Uyghur. I had never touched a Uyghur. I just found out they're exactly like I am. And I said, that one realization is worth your coming to a Catholic American school to study. Because of the religious persecution of the Uyghurs in China, I have helped one of my Uyghur students apply for political asylum through Catholic Charities. May not be the reason he came, but it certainly is a positive outcome. How can your school get its messaging out effectively? Well, many American Catholic schools, just as St. John does, we use recruiting agencies, both in the United States and based in China. Now, we don't pay the agent, we don't work through any one agent, and we never sign an exclusive agreement with an agency, which I highly recommend you do not do. One of our 4 agencies that I now work with, and they're all 4 listed on our website with the information for them, is a US-based agency that works with local agencies all over Asia and actually all over the world. They follow the exact guidelines that I set out for international students. They even allow me to do the WeChat interviews, which I do with every international student from China. They respond immediately to any concerns during the application process and even after the students are enrolled. Working with recruitment agencies can be very rewarding, but please do your research before you sign on with one. Call other schools, call other admissions directors to find out who they work with and how successful they are. Another extremely important thing in messaging is your online footprint. I've had parents say that their students are upstairs in bed at night scrolling through the laptops looking for American schools so they can get up the next morning and say, look, Mom, Dad, this is where I want to go. So make sure that on your webpage you have pictures. First of all, that you have an international student webpage, that you have pictures of the students, you have accomplishments of those students, you have videos of international students interacting with the American students, interviews with international students, especially perhaps by a theology teacher, asking them what the role of Catholicism plays in their life as a Chinese student in their school. But the best possible advertising is satisfied customers. I cannot emphasize the importance of contacting your alumni, staying in touch with them and with their families, their parents. I had one family with 3 siblings that came at 3 different times, and believe me, if the first one had not been a satisfied customer, the others would not have come. How must your high school update its outreach with the new challenges that we now face? If I had a definitive answer to that, I'd be rich. But one suggestion is to employ an international admissions advisor who doesn't deal just with the recruitment. I am that person from the initial contact to graduation with these students that face those challenges. I'm available 24/7 by phone, text, WeChat, and yes, I do get phone calls in the middle of the night. I actually invited two of my Chinese students to Christmas dinner, had nowhere else to go. They became part of my family. This is part of that important satisfied customer effect. However, here are some questions that you might want to ask yourself as a school. Would we be willing to accept new and different English proficiency tests besides just the TOEFL? How about the ITEP Slate, the IELTS, or the Duolingo that we are just now beginning to accept? Would we be willing to offer scholarships to international students? Would we be willing to accept late arrivals to the school with all the travel restrictions and difficulties with getting the visa appointments? Are we willing to continue providing online classes if it's still accepted by SEVP? My closing thought is, no matter what the obstacles have been, it has been so worthwhile for me to pursue this. I love to see the faces of my international students at graduation when they receive those incredible awards, which they do, the academic awards. I love to follow up with them after graduation to see their accomplishments. One young girl who played piano solo in Carnegie Hall, one young man who is now a college professor here in America. It's a passion that started for me many, many years ago and continues to today. These students bring joy to my life, and some people even say they keep me young. Thank you, and God bless.
Well, Susie, I would like